Okay, we're at 4:31. We're missing a few people. So do we have quorum? I don't have the full list in front of me.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's got to be quorum.
You got another email? Okay.
We got 6.
And then Tressa was not able to come as well. Oh, I'm so sorry. She emailed me only, I think, for that. So I haven't heard from him specifically. Did you see something? I'm not sure, so maybe he's still coming yet, but that would be the only person potentially I think that we would be waiting on then, so we can probably just go ahead and get started and start with everyone saying their name.
Thomas Dewhurst, member.
Damaris Potter, member.
Sharon Deaver, chair.
David Benak, vice chair.
Rachel Yondel, member.
Stephen Romanelli, member.
Hey, David, you got fuzz on your mask. Spider webs.
Alrighty, and I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda, but I guess I would like to add that there's a few more motions to add people to subcommittees that weren't listed from the minutes that I think we need to rehash real quick. So besides that amendment.
I move to accept the agenda with the edits as mentioned.
I second that.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your hand or say aye. All right, unanimous, and moving on. Same with the approval of the minutes that you all should have seen in your email. Any suggestions? I did notice some of the conversation missing about the subcommittees, but if we just can re-go over that, then it should be fine. I don't know if there's any other edits, or I'd entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve the minutes with the addition of that.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, then all in favor signify by raising your hand or saying aye. Any opposed? Okay. Hearing none, so that's unanimous. Moving on to communications. Any announcements from anyone seated here? All right, then we can move on. And then we have a new applicant. Is the new applicant here? Lorraine Smith. Did they definitely confirm that they were able to make it for this part of the process? Okay, so if they come later, we can add that a little later. We are going pretty quick through it right now. So let's see, moving on, is there anyone on the phone lines for public comment? And up next would be anyone in the audience for public comment. And just a reminder, we do that again at the end of the meeting in case something came up during the meeting. No calls at the time, so we can move on to, is anyone in the audience interested in coming up for a comment? You go to the podium. This is the applicant? Okay, great. Well, it doesn't look like anyone in the audience is coming for public comment, so we can go right back to where we were just a second ago for the intro of our new applicant. You can, I guess, come to the stand right up here. Justin, I assume you had gotten this, so did you want to start by introducing, or did we get the email for the application? Because I don't remember seeing that. No?
There's no email. There's a form. The form had some personal information of others, so I didn't share it to everyone.
Okay.
Sometimes I get a resume. We didn't get a resume, which I don't know if it's a requirement, but that's what we're here now to discuss, I guess.
Okay. Typically, we do see that information. It's not like we need to share it to everyone, but that's how we've always done it. So I don't know if there's a way, if if it's better to just take away that info, obviously the city would already have to look through the number one qualification, which is if you live in the city limits of the city of Kalamazoo. And so can you speak clear? Sorry. Okay. So my understanding of like the number one rule is that you have to live within the city limits of the city of Kalamazoo. Sorry.
Yeah, that's correct. You have to be a citizen of Kalamazoo. And here for the home address, we don't have a city listed.
Okay.
And I'm not sure why this, yeah. Yep.
Okay. How should we proceed? This has never happened before.
Yeah, I guess we can thank Ms. Smith for coming. But yeah, you're not eligible to serve on this board if you don't live in the city of Kalamazoo.
If that changes, feel free to definitely apply. And if you have public comment, you're still welcome to comment if you were interested in that too. Yeah, thank you. Okay, moving on to new business. We do have people from Eagle here for a presentation that we...
Does any have a public comment?
Oh, yeah, I guess, did you want to make a public comment or anyone else? Okay, we'll go back to that, sure. Come up to make your public comment. Sorry, I didn't see someone else came in. We don't have the mic on. Can we get that on? Sorry. If we're able to get that fixed. Otherwise, I'll do my best to take notes, but it would probably be helpful for the person taking the minutes as well. Are we good, or are you not sure yet? Sorry, I can't see. Okay, sorry. One moment, please. Okay, sorry, if you could just try to speak as clearly as you can.
Rita, one question. I do have that monitor to get back to you at the end meeting. The other thing, you can look at the city's website and look for the GIS map, and that will give you the owner of every parcel if you look at it. So that might, if you're looking, that might help you find places. Yep.
Do we have any additional resources that we would want to share at this time, or I might be able to come up with something by the end if you're able to stick around? I don't know if the city had any input, or we obviously have Eagle about to speak as well, so we'll just get into air in general here. Okay, so nothing at this time. And hopefully we can get the mic working for the next agenda item, which I believe he's working on at this moment, which is the presentation update PM 2.5 given by the Air and Quality Division of Michigan's Department of Environment, Great Lake and Energy, also known as EGLE. I just realized that we don't have it on this version of the agenda to check to make sure we're live streaming on Facebook and YouTube. So while we're waiting, I'm going to check in on that. If anyone else knows, you can feel free to chime in. Do you want to see if that works now? Awesome.
Oh, hello. All right, can you hear me like this if we kind of split the mic? All right. Cool. Well, thank you for having us. I'm sorry it didn't work out last time, but we're here in person. My name's Erica Schuff, and my coworker John Olson is here with me today. As previously mentioned, we both work for the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy in the Air Quality Division. Specifically, we're in the State Implementation and Development Unit. It's a mouthful. And we're here to talk to you today, just talk with you, kind of like a high-level overview of recent revisions the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has made to the particulate matter standard. Next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so just a basic overview, quick reminder, what is PM 2.5? So PM 2.5 is also known as fine particulate matter, which is less than 2.5 microns in diameter. And then for those who can see the screen, on the right-hand side, we have an up-close image of a piece of human hair, which ranges between 50 and 70 microns in diameter. And then the blue circles represent PM10. We won't be talking about that today. However, we will be talking about PM 2.5, which is represented and depicted by the red circles. So it just gives you an idea of how fine particulate PM 2.5 is. Next slide, please. All right, so as previously stated, in February of this year, US EPA revised the annual primary standard for PM 2.5. The standard was lowered from a level of 12 micrograms per cubic meter down to 9 micrograms per cubic meter. And then later on in our discussion, John will cover why they made that decision. Next slide, please. Thank you. So kind of reiterating what was on the last page, but EPA promulgated their final rule in February of this year, published the rule in March, and the rule became effective on May 6th of this year. And again, the standard for PM 2.5 was lowered from 12 down to 9 micrograms per cubic meter. And I just have on there for fun, we do have a 24-hour PM 2.5 standard. However, that was not revised. That remains the same. And I'm going to pass it on to John for the next slide.
So although exposure to particulates can impact people in different ways, those of us that are the most vulnerable and sensitive to changes in air quality should be aware of the health risks of short or prolonged exposures to elevated levels of fine particulate matter. Prolonged exposure to unhealthy levels of fine particulate matter can increase the likelihood of developing respiratory conditions such as asthma, heart disease, and can result in the premature death in people with pre-existing lung or heart conditions. Even for less sensitive populations, high levels of particulates in our air can lead to short-term breathing difficulties, resulting in missed days of school or work and visits to the emergency room. Next slide. So why did the EPA lower the PM2.5 standard? In setting this new standard of 9 micrograms per cubic meter, EPA worked alongside public health experts and scientists to determine whether risks to public health and well-being of sensitive populations are present at lower levels of particulate matter pollution than previously thought, which was found to be the case. Next slide, please. So as previously stated, the EPA has recently revised the fine particulate matter standard to 9 micrograms per cubic meter from 12 in an effort to protect those with existing health conditions that make them more sensitive to all levels of particulate matter exposure. Over time, average ambient air concentrations of particulates have been on the decline as more stringent federal and state regulations have been implemented and emissions from industry and mobile sources have decreased. You can go to the next slide. So I don't know if the people online are going to be able to see this, but we include this slide to illustrate that ambient air concentration readings of PM2.5 at our monitor located at the Kalamazoo Fairgrounds have gone down substantially since the early 2000s as new national ambient air quality standards have been put in place by EPA and met through planning work at the state level here in Michigan, although over the past few years, we have seen an uptick in PM2.5 concentrations at this monitor. You can go to the next slide, please.
All right, so what is next? So us at the Air Quality Division, we're going to be working on recommendations for area designations to submit to US EPA. What does that mean? We need to recommend areas of the state that are in non-attainment, so areas that are above the standard. As you saw in the last slide, the EPA recently issued their final values, and the Kalamazoo monitor is over that 9 at 10.4. So we'll be looking at the Kalamazoo area to classify how much of the area should be considered non-attainment. We'll also need to classify other areas as in attainment or unclassifiable, so maybe more rural areas that there aren't as much information at. Let's see, next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so what will we take into consideration during this work? So first, we're going to look at our air quality data. As I previously mentioned, we have that monitor in Kalamazoo, and we know that monitor is violating the current standard. So we'll complete a 5-factor type analysis on the Kalamazoo CBSA area, so our core-based statistical area. I think for Kalamazoo, was it just Kalamazoo County? I'm trying to remember.
I think it's Kalamazoo, Calhoun, and St. Joseph County.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll take a look at the counties included in the CBSA area Kalamazoo County is in. And we will then look at emissions data, so look at our point and non-point sources, what kind of emissions or air pollution do those different sources put out. Then we'll look at our meteorology, so this helps us look at how the pollutants are transported through the air. So hypothetically, we'll look at different like wind roses, and that'll show like the direction the air generally comes from at the monitor location. So if it's from the south, we'll want to see like what sources are to the south of that monitor, see what's contributing over there. Then we'll try to look at some meteorology monitoring, which will tell us how pollutants that end up at the monitor location, where they backtrack from generally at our higher days. And then we'll also take into account like geography and topography. Michigan's pretty flat, so that might not have too much of a play, but we'll take a look at that. And then to help us draw some boundary lines for non-attainment areas, we'll look at like county lines, township, city lines. If using our 5-factor analysis, it doesn't look like the entire county, for let's say Kalamazoo County, is contributing to the exceedances at that monitor, we can do partial counties and not include that entire area in our recommendation to EPA. And then, let's see, then I have, oh yes, we've been looking at EJ areas as well to see if there's any way we might be able to include that in our work with attainment boundaries and non-attainment boundaries. Next slide, please. Thank you. So here's a little bit more on the timing. We have to submit our recommended designations to EPA by February of 2025. Then the EPA will review our recommendations. They'll do their own 5-factor analysis. They'll run their own numbers, decide if they agree with us or not. If they have differing opinions, they're required to submit us a letter letting us know like why they're choosing, why they think they're going to recommend different boundary lines. We can respond to them, but ultimately it will be up to EPA. In the end, they have the final say on area designations. So, but they have to issue their designations by February 2026. And now I'll pass it back to John.
Cool. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. Great, thank you. So that you all can be informed about Eagle's ongoing work to designate areas throughout the state and meet the revised standard, we've included the link to Eagle's public calendar and the link for Eagle's Gov delivery service, which you can subscribe to with your email address to receive notifications about public hearings, meetings, and outreach efforts relating to PM 2.5 that will occur over the coming months and years. Eric and I can also be reached through our emails that we've included on the final slide if you have any questions, concerns, or input. At Eagle, we value public participation and engagement as it helps to guide our decision-making process. We highly suggest that you join sessions that are open to the public to provide comments on our work and hope that you get in touch with us directly or indirectly with feedback or additional thoughts.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
For the slide that you were just talking about, for the public, how can they get that link? I'm assuming if we haven't yet, can have the slideshow to be able to click it, but in general, for everyone else, can you read out what that would be? Because we're only seeing like the link in highlighted.
Okay.
It might be complicated.
I don't have it memorized.
I don't either. Let's see.
But I'm sure, let's see, you could probably just, it looks like it was Eagle calendar. It's just our website. I guess we gotta start memorizing.
Mm-hmm.
But we can do I don't know, we can send it to you to include in the minutes. But generally, I would imagine if you Google it, Eagle, like public comment calendar, that might get you there. Shouldn't be too hard to find. Sorry about that.
Yeah. And I think that's all we have. So thank you for allowing us to come to speak. And yeah, we'll take any questions you might have.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, we'll try our best to answer them for you now, or feel free to reach out later on.
I was just curious to know, looked like the slide you showed with about 20 years of air quality from the Kalamazoo County Fairgrounds. Mm-hmm. Do you have any information on why over the last 3 or was it 4 years? 4 years, there's been a steady, slight uptick in that concentration, where we were once at 7.8 and now we're at 10.4.
Yeah, that could probably be attributed to the wildfires from Canada, potentially. Let's see, I think that might also be coming from kind of non-road sources as well. I think we've seen statewide, we've seen an uptick in emissions in that as well. Erica?
I can't say definitely exactly why it's increasing, but during our analysis for this 5-factor analysis, we're looking at historical trends like this. We'll take a look at different industry in the area, as well as like transportation, commuting patterns, maybe for people who live on the outskirts of Kalamazoo, the city or the county. It could have to do with that, but I can't say exactly why it's been increasing the last few years. Yeah.
I believe we have had some industry expansion in that timeline too. Do you have the dates a little bit better memorized?
Yeah, GPL doubled their capacity. A known violator of Clean Air Act in extreme violation according to the EPA, doubled their capacity, came online in 2020.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, if they're a major source, we'll definitely be looking at what kind of emissions they put out every year to take into
Just to
effect.
follow up on that, the only monitor you're looking at is at the fairgrounds?
Yes, because that's the only regulatory monitor we have in Kalamazoo County.
You need more, because that's a very misleading measurement. There are monitors all over town, looking at them right now, looking at 10 of them, averaged over a year. There's not one below 25. So going with the fairgrounds is really hiding the data.
Are those purple air monitors that you're referring to?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we can use those to kind of figure out what our non-attainment area boundaries are going to look like. But the only regulatory monitor that we can use for violations of the standard is that Kalamazoo Fairgrounds monitor.
Right, but I think it points out that that's insufficient.
We can take that back, and if you guys have that concern, John and I aren't in monitoring, so we aren't as knowledgeable on exactly why and how many monitors there are in the counties, but if that's a concern, that's something we'd want to hear about. So
We do have periodic reviews of a monitoring network, so I think whenever that next one comes up, I think that might be something we could take into consideration. So yeah, we'll get back to our colleagues with that.
Another framing thing that I'd like to see you stop using is talking about this as the air is not bad, we're just changing the standards. In 1971, the blood lead level that was considered acceptable was 39 micrograms per deciliter. In 2012, it's 5 maximum. That doesn't mean that people got more lead, it's just that we got smarter about it. So recognizing that this is more dangerous than what we used to think it is part of the story. It's not that trying to say it's not unhealthy air.
Yeah, I think kind of that slide that touched on that, I think it was just to articulate that the air quality necessarily hasn't changed, but I think it's recognizing that the EPA has lowered the standard because they've recognized that at lower levels, lower ambient air concentrations of PM 2.5, there are additional risks that weren't previously known. So
I don't want to monopolize it, just one more note people have. This new standard is for long-term health. And it separates, so the old standard of 12 was for health and welfare. So this splits health out separate from welfare and leaves welfare at 12 micrograms.
So the 12 doesn't necessarily go away. There'll always be the 2012 PM 2.5 standard. There are areas, not in Michigan, we didn't have any like non-attainment areas in Michigan for 2012 for that 12 micrograms per cubic meter. So this is I guess the previous 12 and this 9, they are primary health-based standards. We do have secondary standards that are not as low for like plant life, stuff like that. So there are 2 different standards for primary health-based and then I think like ecological plant-based.
Oh, sorry, just one more. On the slide that talks about what is PM 2.5, the one with the hair, it says with the sources of it, I think you have fires and auto and smokestacks.
Just a few. Obviously, there's more.
Right. I think it would be important to include industry in there rather than pretend that that's not a
I mean, most
source.
stats are from industry in my eyes, but I could clearly update that for another one. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I might have missed it in the presentation, but how long did you guys say that you would need to file this report to the EPA? How much time do you have?
Yeah, we have until February of 2025, so just
Okay.
under a year.
Okay, and also, just wondering when looking at the data you're going to be using, like the meteorology, geography, I guess how will you classify environmental justice areas in Kalamazoo? Like what criteria will you be looking for looking in those areas?
So the state, or Eagle in particular, has it was draft, but now it's finalized. That happened recently. It's a Michigan environmental justice screening tool, and it takes into consideration kind of a variety of different factors, socioeconomic, environmental, other factors to kind of create a overall score that allows us to essentially figure out which communities throughout the state are the most disadvantaged. And I think the threshold that we're using, or that was recommended by the Office of the Environmental Justice Public Advocate, was I think it's the 80th percentile. So I was kind of tasked with putting those maps together and collecting that data. So I'd be happy to send that over to you if you would like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I have a follow-up question related to that. How do you define the lines for where you're going to say that population is included? Are you using zip codes? Are you using, what is the map?
Census tract data. Yeah. So that's kind of built into the tool, but I think that comes from the U.S. Census Bureau. So.
So some of us have been following this a little while, and I was hoping that you could also answer how long you've been working with Eagle and what your specific titles are.
So I've been working for Eagle maybe about a year and a half now, and my role is an environmental quality analyst.
And I'm also environmental quality analyst, and I've been here for like 2.5 years, just about.
Back to the air quality monitoring, do you have any idea what it would cost to put another, what is it?
Regulatory monitoring?
Regulatory monitoring system in place.
I have to guess. I know they're pretty pricey. I want to say like $250,000 or something around there. I would just be guessing on that, but it's pricier than the purple air and whatnot.
Okay, thank you.
I was also curious, on average, how many of those monitors does each county have? Is Kalamazoo different in that we only have one, or is that?
I think it's dependent upon kind of urbanization and how clustered industry is. Like Wayne County, just based on their population, I think they have quite a few monitors. But if you get into like rural areas of the state, they're less.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, like Lansing area, we have one. Detroit probably has like, maybe, I'm guessing, like 9 or 10. Then there's only one maybe in Houghton City. They're very like spread out. It has a lot to do with the different standards that come out and like population and whatnot.
Thank you.
There are other ways to, besides $250,000 monitor. You could do like SUMA canisters and the TO15 analysis. That's going to be about $1,000 a sample, and that would be comprehensive, and that's scientifically valid to any lab.
Yeah, so EPA sets the guidelines for us and how we can monitor, but there are different ways. Like we've had different projects where they put out SUMA canisters and whatnot throughout different communities for short-term like monitoring, but EPA has the final say on what type of monitors they'd like us to use for our criteria pollutants, including PM.
I hope this is relevant, but I guess with the changing of standards, how can we see that for violators, for the impact of what that will mean for if this is violated, I guess?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Okay, that's it. So how is it going to be enforced? Because, as I said, a lot of us have followed this for a while, and we've seen different violations come through, and with various levels of what happens. So with the changing of standards, how will that be increased, I'm assuming?
So we'll do our designation recommendations. EPA will come out with final designations, and during that time period, our group will begin attainment planning. So if Kalamazoo, an area of Kalamazoo County or the CBS area gets classified as non-attainment, we have a certain time frame. We have to bring the area back into attainment, so back at or under 9. So that will include possible rulemaking, working with the public and industry on maybe making new rules or strengthening, tightening rules that we have. So that's definitely, I know John and I are thinking once, around when we are issuing our recommendations, and as we move forward, we're going to be reaching back out to you guys, because as we get into attainment planning, we're going to want to work with you if you have ideas on how to tighten down, get us back into attainment. But that is a step that's a big process that we'll have coming up. And once those rules or whatever comes up with this attainment planning, we have obviously our district staff who go out and enforce, and we have permits and whatnot that have to be updated based on new rules.
Okay, so is also, are the lines for what zones will be considered the 3 different categories also based off of census, or how does that work?
Like attainment, non-attainment, or?
Yeah, and what was the third?
Unclassifiable.
Okay.
It's not based on census. We look at, do you have a better idea?
So I guess when we're kind of doing the analysis to figure out how we'll draw our boundaries, we usually for attainment, we don't worry about that. But for non-attainment areas, we kind of start at the jurisdictional boundary areas, so CSA, CBSA, and then once we kind of go through our analysis and evaluation of the other criteria, we kind of whittle it down maybe to township level and things like that. So the lines can get pretty detailed. We can do half counties and kind of stuff like that. So. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you. Thanks.
I have one real quick. So I guess this will be in the future, but once you are starting your attainment planning and then begin working with industry and the public and trying to either revise the rules or create the rules, how will you handle industries such as graphic packaging in the area that don't want to comply with these new rules for the air quality as they've been doing in the past? I guess how can you balance, how can you balance their wants and these new standards? How will you go about that?
That's a good question.
Well, as we go through that rulemaking and coming up with new standards, obviously, we get input from the public and industry, but ultimately, whatever new rules we put out, if people aren't complying and we're at inspections, I'm not an inspector and I'm not in our enforcement division, but if people aren't complying, I imagine we would issue violations, and if it got to a point where industry or the company's not cooperating or listening, I would imagine it would be elevated to enforcement if the inspector and district thought it needed to, and we'd go from there.
Our district inspectors usually have fairly tight schedules on when they go out to sites. So yeah, if they were to go to a source in a non-attainment area and find that they were in violation of a rule that we put in place, then yeah, food enforcement, there'd be an enforcement case and violation. So. Yeah.
Anything else?
Anything else? All right, thank you. And then you'll make sure we get the links and everything?
Definitely.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I was able to do a deep dive into our bylaws. There is an associate member that you all can appoint who cannot serve as chair or vice chair and has no voting rights. So they could be an associate member, someone with some expertise that you all would deem valuable to the committee. So Ms. Smith, you hung around long enough if you'd be interested in talking about that to the group, if the group's interested in interviewing.
So I just want to throw this out there. Previously, when we have done that, it's usually been someone that either termed out and are no longer a voting member, or we were full, and then we've had people basically wanting to be a part of it, but they weren't able to vote until there was an open seat. And so I've also never been familiar with that being anyone outside of the city limits, but if that is something you're saying is fine, then I am very okay with that. I just wanted to throw that out there from my experience.
No, I'm laughing because I'm pulling it up now. It does not have a residency requirement as an associate member.
Okay, would you like to come up and do the sort of regular process? Okay. Okay, and normally we would do something like sharing part of the resume, but I guess since we haven't seen anything, if you want to tell us what your interest is, we can start with that.
So my name is Lorraine Smith Holyfield. I have actually worked in air quality since 2017. I started with one really large nationwide company, and I just started my own. So I'm kind of more interested in how I can be of assistance and, you know, see where we can go with things. I've had a lot of experience working with Eagle, working with other companies, so on and so forth. So.
Okay, and then I guess if you wanted to, you spoke a little bit about this, but if you wanted to speak to what your qualifications, it doesn't necessarily have to be anything specific, but just what you feel like you would really bring to the table.
So I am NRPP certified, I'm ARS certified, I sit on the IEMA board for the state of Illinois. I'm certified across the nation actually for radon mitigation, vapor mitigation, et cetera, et cetera.
Anyone else can chime in with questions if you have them as well.
Yeah, I have a quick question. I guess, can you speak to any specific projects you've worked on in the past, maybe with Eagle or anyone else?
Without divulging too much information, I can tell you there's a really large project coming up in Wayne County that my company is actually over. It's a very large building, lots of vapor contamination. We're working with benzenes, VOCs, you name it. We've kind of touched on the PFAS incident here in Michigan, but as most of you know, they're still trying to figure out how to dilute it to do anything with it. So there's contaminants everywhere.
I don't know how to ask this, so it doesn't sound wrong, but why Kalamazoo?
So, I work with the city of Kalamazoo. I attend their meetings on, I believe it's the first Friday of the month, and Mayor Hopewell, had just told me about this and said it'd be something interesting for me to get into and kind of see what's going on here, so.
Which meetings do you normally attend?
It's at the, oh, forgive me, it's the land bank.
Okay.
And they do a lot of mitigation projects because they're usually refurbishing old buildings, et cetera, so.
When people join the board, one of the things that is usually pretty common is that they have a project or an issue in the city that is kind of top of mind for them. Is there something in Kalamazoo in terms of environmental issue or topic that you would like to put some efforts into?
There is one, I can't really divulge too much information because it hasn't been made like out there yet. They're currently testing with Fishbeck. But again, I'm still waiting on results for that, so I apologize. Once it's made public, I can bring it all to the table. I wasn't expecting the interview, so I apologize too.
Trying to think, is there anything, you're looking at, is this the bylaws? Is there a limit of amount of associate members? I don't believe there was, but I just wanted to like throw that out there in case that was a...
Yeah, I don't see it here. I mean, I'll confirm all this, but, reading this right now, it doesn't explicitly say that anyone would need to be a citizen or resident of Kalamazoo, but that'll get confirmed by me. I guess you all could make a vote to confirm, deny, or push it to next month when I get some confirmation.
Yep, I would entertain a motion.
Before Justin just gave us that last bit of information, I was going to ask that could we defer and possibly see what information was submitted in the application, give us a chance to review, and then come back again next month and see where we stand.
I like that idea, just because we, we usually would be able to review ahead of time, and since everyone hasn't had a chance, let's do that to be a little bit more normal part of the process, but you're welcome to come back. There's a few people missing today. I don't know if we'd have more questions, but I like the idea of waiting until next month. I don't know if we need a motion for that.
I move that we table any decision till our next meeting in September.
I second that. Is there any more discussion? Anyone else want to chime in about that?
I just want to say, I don't know how we're going to vote, but if we vote to table, please don't take that as we're not interested.
Absolutely
not. Trying to, this is
different.
Outside of the normal procedure, so we just want to make sure that everything is done right.
Absolutely.
And then, I forwarded what you filled out online, but if you could send a resume to me, we've been communicating, I can forward that to the board.
Sure.
Did what he said, but any other discussion, or we could just then vote all in favor, aye, or raise your hand to wait till next month. All right, thank you so much for coming in and having a last minute interview.
Absolutely.
So then we'd move on to the discussion of the current subcommittees and placement of new members. We talked a bit about this last week, and last month, and I was hoping that we could review what anyone had committed that they were interested in, because all of those notes were not included, and I really thought we had some more of those, planned out. So we have the one listed here for under 1A, under the unfinished business where we are right now, for you to join Steve to join the waste subcommittee. But we also had a few other people mention some things, so if you wanted to chime in if you were one of those people.
Yeah, I would also be interested in joining the waste subcommittee as well as the native landscape committee.
I'm interested in the Native Landscape Committee as well.
Just a waste for me.
And then did we have someone that was interested in the Urban Deer Committee, I believe?
No,
That was David DeBack.
Oh, okay.
Not here.
I thought there was going to be some combination of the committees.
And Tressa was still in the wildlife one, and
I think she was wanting to take over, or be involved with the deer.
Maybe her
as well.
And, well, since they're not here, maybe we can table that till next month, but I believe you're right, that it was, that they were interested, fine, this is an emotion, I guess. We'll just get that updated if it's different than we assume, which is combining the wildlife and natural resources protection with Tressa and David, who is not here, with the urban deer to make that one committee. Okay, and sorry, I did kind of skip a little bit there. I see that we also have draft emission and vision statement for each subcommittee.
It's a fantastic segue, because it seems to be where this is going to. So I think it would just help to understand what, so we have the natural resources. It's what does that mean? If it includes deer, that's fine. We could put more people there on deer and create a subcommittee of that committee. But I think, just kind of hammering down what these subcommittees are actually doing, and I think that might be helpful. It doesn't have to be as strict as a mission vision statement, but I think that trying to think about these subcommittees and their role on this larger committee is important.
Yeah, I like that. I would say a lot of these can be pretty clearly listed because they are being the liaison for another committee. So that would be like the NFP Review Board, Planning Commission, Tree Committee, Asylum and Policy and Management Council, Parks and Rec, the Kalamazoo River Watershed Council, and sort of the Odor Task Force.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe, if we're going to go down this road of vision statements, mission statements, do we want to separate out subcommittees and liaisons or something along those lines? Because, like you said, I do the Watershed Council, the Odor Task Force, and it's go to meetings and report back.
Yeah, it is the reports. Yeah, do we want to have, I guess, then, since we're under procedural, reports specifically as the liaison roles, and then we can do committees as a separate thing, because that would be more mentioning their focus on a topic that's not necessarily tied to a group. However, I do feel like part of what you were talking about last month was there's kind of a plan to make some of those roles be basically subcommittees, where it would end up being a report. But for now, that's not a thing for a lot of these.
Yes, I think to Dr. Benak's point too. I think clarifying what is a liaison, what is a member of, and I think just the more clarity, the better. This is really stemming from the natural features thing. So we have three things we want to accomplish. We want to focus on urban deer and follow the urban deer plan. We want to kind of reevaluate normal May, native landscapings, and things like that. And it seemed like just rolling those all into one category. It seems like they're broad enough and big enough that it could be their own separate subcommittees. And then waste stems from the discussions that we've had about the River Watershed Council and the monthly reports from Chris. These are great points, and we can just think about it and talk about it again next week. We don't have to do any of this now, but if we want to define what it is to be a liaison, what it is to be a member, and what it is to be, anything like that, I think that'll be helpful.
Okay. I think we're all good probably there, unless there was any other comments about that section for procedural. Okay, then we can move on to sustainability plan update.
Yep, so the big thing right now, I have a short presentation about some Scope 2 emissions. So fairly recently, we've been talking with Consumers Energy about enrolling in one of their, it's basically a community solar program. It's not a community solar program, it's an actual term, but this is where we'd be purchasing solar energy from consumers starting in 2028. We, as the city of Kalamazoo. Just kind of running through, Kalamazoo City Commission declared a climate emergency in 2019. The City Commission approved the Community Sustainability Plan in 2022. And that plan directs the city of Kalamazoo to strive to be carbon neutral by 2050. We have around 26 years to meet this goal, and if you average it out, we have to reduce by 2,000 metric tons every year for the next 26, 25 years to hit that net zero goal. The 2022 report, shows that Kalamazoo As a municipality, in scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions emitted about 50,053 metric tons of CO2e, and about 58% of those emissions were related to electricity use. So at the city, what I've been trying to do with folks, everyone, put our heads together, we have to get rid of these scope 2 emissions. We have to cut down these scope 2 emissions. We've explored solar panels and energy efficiencies, but the city is kind of, it's odd. So you think of your house, you think of your rooftop, you think of a solar panel, that can solve a lot of your problems, but the city owns pump houses, lift stations. It's just too spread out for the, kind of the traditional put a solar panel on it and forget it model. So working with consumers, we are investigating this solar program. So of the 50,053 metric tons of CO2e in 2022, we used 50 million kilowatt hours to get to that number. Just the electrical use alone resulted in the release of 29,000 metric tons of CO2e. So there you go. It's, little over half. Enrolling in this program, so the way this program would work, we would commit to purchase 43 million kilowatt hours of solar produced energy, and that would equate to 24,736 metric tons of CO2e, so about 49% of our emissions. And those numbers don't quite add up because we cannot include unmetered accounts, so streetlights and traffic signals, so those wouldn't be in this program. But if we enroll in this program, kind of taking away 49% of our 2022 emissions, we'd be kind of 15 years ahead of schedule, reaching net zero. If we were to enroll in this program, we have to commit this month, or the application window closes. It opens up again next year. All of the rates and everything changes. This program wouldn't start until 2028, and this, I sent this information out in the packet. ICLEI, the folks that I work with on the carbon accounting, like this program. It starts in 2028 because this solar field isn't built yet. So enrolling in this program also helps expand solar in Michigan by increasing the number of solar panels and industrial solar fields.
Just a question. Is there any reticence on the part of the city to not do this? I mean, the deadline's coming up, right? Or have you already received approval to apply for it?
No approval. No approval yet. So where it is now, the Utility Pricing Committee, or Policy Committee, has reviewed it. They had some questions. We answered those questions, so we'll go before them on the 12th. It'll be presented to the City Commission on the 3rd, and Committee of the Whole at the beginning, just an information piece. And then the Commission would vote on it on the 19th, I believe, or the 16th, their next meeting after the 3rd. Yeah, so that's pretty much just what I ran through already. But yeah, so just bring it up to you all to review. You saw the packet, probably it's it's on the Civic Clerk, of what consumers sent us, and then the letter of support from ICLEI. So, but I'm here to answer any questions. I understand that this is a big one, so here I am. Fire away.
Did you answer the location of where solar would go? Is that just something we assume we would figure out later? Is that what you were trying to say?
We won't assume, we'll know. They're currently siting now. So this program too, they want to know how many people are going, how many people, institutions are going to enroll before they cite it. Consumers hasn't told me who is enrolling in this cohort, in this 2024 cohort, but previous cohorts include the state of Michigan, Michigan State University, Ford, and General Motors. Businesses, they need recs. Cities, municipalities don't necessarily need recs, but this all counts against our carbon footprint. So we would get recs at the end of the year, proving that the energy that we used up to that 43 million kilowatt hours was produced through solar panels. It will be in Michigan. It will be on the regional grid. It will be local-ish in that sense.
The location does matter, and I think that that's an important thing that should be discussed in advance before getting excited about it. We've seen a whole string of poorly cited, environmentally friendly developments in the last few years, and we need to avoid that.
I would agree, and I remember the different challenges. I can't remember how long ago it was that we had that presentation from a Western or local college student, I don't remember, who just citing the different like ideas of what would be beneficial in locations, and they noted the concern of putting solar over basically farms, fields. But a lot of what that conclusion was for locally was not ideal as far as location, but you're basically saying this would be somewhere in Michigan, local-ish, so likely not here based off of that, or not, or...
Based on the size of an industrial solar field, there's no room in the city for anything like that?
And that's the definite model that it would be a field. It wouldn't be like some kind of combination of attempts of parking lot structures or on top of buildings, because I understand that's a very complicated process with all sorts of different extra people included. But basically, this would only be from one mass field, basically.
Yep, gosh, yeah, I mean, I hate to say I'm certain, but I'm 99.999, we can keep going on the nines, that it'd be a large-scale industrial solar field, similar to the ones you see off 94, I think east of Owl Creek there.
Just curious, the cost. I mean, is it cheaper? I'm just curious if there are cost estimates.
Yep, so this program, and this is all in the packet there as well, so we would commit to paying a set amount of solar, of energy, of kilowatt hours for the next 20 years. And then this energy produced would go on the market, and if energy sells above the set cost, and then we, the city, receive the difference back in a credit that can be then applied to other energy that we use, the streetlights or any type of natural gas or anything like that. So, yeah, that's how that works.
I would like to see a solid breakdown explanation as to why rooftop solar won't work for the city, because there are acres of city buildings that could be turned into solar panels.
Yep. Without I'll give you kind of maybe a rhetorical piece here now. So I was looking at putting solar panels on top of Crosstown Parkway, which is the highest non-water related energy user in the city. Crosstown Parkway is the police station there, Crosstown and Burdick. Covering that entire flat roof and solar panels would cost $750,000 and provide us with 14% of that building's energy use. Of that, in the grand picture, that's less than 1% of the city's total energy use. So there's, just using that one building as an example, and then going back to, these disparate pump houses and water stations or lift stations, and all this kind of equipment and infrastructure the city has. Again, we can't put a solar panel on every one of those things. So it's really difficult to do these type of behind-the-meter, large-scale programs with solar. There's definitely still room we can do on energy efficiency, behavior change, anything like that. But if we're going to capture this amount of emissions, it's difficult on the actual infrastructure.
You say it's $750K to do, it'd be 1% of the city's energy use. What's the payback on that? How many years before it returns a net zero?
Yeah, I'd have to crunch those numbers and just so divide what we pay by the kilowatts. But again, that would just be 1%. So yeah, I can work on those numbers. I can get them out to you.
But then my point is, what's the value that we place on farmland? 1% of the city's electricity generated in that one site. How much farmland does that preserve?
Yeah, these are kind of the big philosophical questions that we're all struggling with as environmentalists now. We've set these net zero goals, and we're trying to figure out how to reach them, and there's all these give and take. When I was at the Land Conservancy, this farmland issue came up a lot, and I spoke with the DNR, and I figured that they would be totally against solar fields. But they said most farmland is fallow for 8 months out of the year and erosion and non-point solution. So, yeah, these are great philosophical questions that I can't answer here, and I think that we're all struggling with as environmentalists.
Following up with that, and you were looking at the footprint of that large building. Were you including what I assume would be a lot larger of the parking lot space as well in that number? Because that's, and I get that might not flow exactly, but.
Yeah, parking lots are much more expensive than just putting solar on buildings because you're tearing out the entire parking lot. So that's kind of where that stopped. We could add that. But yeah, the cost, and even then, I mean, say the parking lot's 3 times the size of that building, and just kind of doing dummy math, 3 times, whatever it would produce still wouldn't get you to half of what that building uses.
Because, yeah, you said 14%, and then that overall was less than 1%. Would times 4 be more? Would it be close to 4%, or?
It's hard to say without the spreadsheets in front of me. I'm a liberal arts major, so I need those crutches.
Okay, and then are you saying there's no way to do a parking lot version without completely redoing the parking lot?
That's what I've heard, and it just the cost to tear it out and then reseal it. But even then, here's what I'll do. I will measure out all of the parking lots. I can do that on GIS easy enough. I can measure all of the parking lots the city owns, and we can look at that. My best guess, based on what I do, is that it's not going to cut it.
Okay. I will say, to save your time, I know the planning department definitely already has maps of parking lots in general, so I'm sure that they have that easy for city.
Those are the folks that's my department.
Cool, yeah.
I can just plug in that shape file and measure.
Cool.
So you said that they were already inspecting areas for this solar project, is that right?
Consumers, yeah, they're scouting, yeah.
Do you happen to know what kind of areas they're looking at? Like, are they looking at old farmland, or I guess?
Generally, that's where these installations go, because they're flat. There's no trees there. It's kind of ready to be developed into a solar field.
Okay, yeah. I was just wondering, if they were planning on, developing on land that already has like an ecosystem functioning there, but yeah, thank you.
Maybe this is philosophical as well, but are there any models that would have a movable field that would be able to not completely kill the farmland if, how like rotating crops, like rotating solar field locations. I also don't know if that would be helpful because of what I've heard about how it can damage the soil, but feel free to.
Yeah, no, this is fun stuff that we just read. And I can't speak for consumers. I don't know their model. But there are models of, pollinator habitat underneath solar fields. There's some farming that can be done under solar fields. Again, this is not what consumers had said they were going to do or will do, but there's different types of solar farming with some type of agriculture or some type of habitat set up there.
Okay. Any more comments or questions? I do see listed here the note of endorsement. So I assume you were hoping for like a motion with that?
There could be. We could work up a way to do a subcommittee. I know I sent out the information last week, and if you didn't get a chance to kind of read the plan or have other reservations, we could talk, or you all are welcome to talk at any of the other open meetings as well on behalf of the board or as a citizen. So the 3rd, it'll become This is a committee of the whole, so that's that early meeting, which is like an information session. So it'll be introduced there.
That's the 5 o'clock one, and that's on a Tuesday because of Memorial Day, correct?
Bingo, yep.
Okay, so that's the 5 o'clock one that it would be introduced and discussed, and that would be a time for comment for anyone interested here or otherwise.
Yes.
And then voting on it, the next one 2-ish weeks after, but on the Monday?
Correct, yeah, I believe it's the 16th, 13th or 16th.
Okay. And then what were you looking for a subcommittee? I'm sorry, I missed that, I guess.
Well, if you all wanted to take more time to digest this, you could create a subcommittee of less than quorum that could meet and discuss. So it'd have to be less than quorum because it's not an official meeting.
Yeah, and we wouldn't have the ability to create an official motion before it would be voted on at the city commission, but we could have a representative for part of the group, basically, at those meetings, is what you're saying?
Yes, yes, but I mean, every one of you could come to the meeting and
individuals,
speak on their
for sure.
behalf. Yeah. Yep, the timeline, yeah, so again, this closes on the 30th, so the timelines just are very tight to get enrolled in this program.
Any suggestions? Would anyone be interested in meeting as a subcommittee for this? Okay, we always can do our own looking into it and asking questions. I'm sure, Justin, you're open to that, right?
Absolutely, this is all I've been talking about for the last week or so.
Awesome. Are you going anywhere else in the community to discuss this ahead of time by chance?
I'm not going anywhere necessarily. I've been emailing groups and talking to folks and kind of local.
Not like, okay. So obviously people could come here as one of those kinds of places, but...
Folks have been invited to this meeting about this.
All right. Okay. Well, then I guess I don't hear any motions, so everyone knows that they can go to those meetings and ask questions. So I guess we can move on unless I'm missing something.
Can you just repeat the meetings when they are?
Oh, yeah.
Where they are?
So the Tuesday, September 3rd is the Committee of the Whole, and that's the 5 p.m. meeting that they go over the introduction of something, and then they would vote on it basically 13 days later, I believe, so the 16th, Monday, City Commission meeting. And that would be is it 7 p.m. for those ones after that?
Yeah, those are the later meetings.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, I had something else. Okay, so I guess for the first one at 5 p.m., would someone need to bring it, I forget what the process is, to have it be something that's discussed? It's not automatically something discussed, right?
With those meetings, yeah, I think I can answer that. So there's public comments. You all know it's coming. At that meeting, I will discuss this program. Director Baker will discuss this program, and a representative from Consumers Energy will discuss this program. So those three individuals, including myself, will discuss the program, present it to the City Commission, and that'll be it.
Okay.
Yeah, if that answers that.
Okay, yeah, so there's not like a general time that I thought for previous issues, you can bring it to that night's 7 p.m. meeting for further comment, but I might be misremembering, and I wish Jean was here to explain it, but...
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm treating it the way when I presented the greenhouse gas report, I was invited to talk to Commission. I talked to Commission, and then that was it. This one, there was not going to be a vote on it that day.
Yeah.
We'll be presenting it as an information session, and then it'll be voted on at the 16th meeting.
Okay, so I guess the main reason is I want to make sure that people get to hear that information and then potentially be able to ask questions. Is public comment going to be at least after, a general public comment, going to be after that for the 5 o'clock?
Well, there's two public comment sessions. So there's a public comment session for the Committee of the Whole, and then there's a public comment session for the regular business meeting. So, yeah, there'd be no reason why you couldn't sit through my presentation or our presentation on this and then speak again. You'd still have the 3 minutes, and it wouldn't be a dialogue. It'd just kind of be a statement But at that September 3rd meeting, there would be 2 chances for public comment.
Okay, cool, thank you. Well, I think we can move on to the reports. So NFP Review Board, Bobby is not here, same with air and water quality. Wildlife and Natural Resources, Tressa is not here. Do we have anything for the Planning Commission?
There was no planning commission meeting this month. So.
Okay, thank you. And then anything for Tree Committee?
We did not meet in August.
Okay.
Seeing no one will be meeting when there's an interest to take trees down.
That's the purpose.
That's the case.
Okay. And then I'm next with the Sound Lake Policy and Management Council. Actually had to miss it for the first time, so I apologize. I do not have an update on that. And then Rob is not here for Parks and Rec. Anything for Kalamazoo River Watershed Council?
Yeah, they, at the last meeting, there was a really interesting presentation about what is termed a false solution for climate change. So there's it has to do with anaerobic digesters on CAFOs, confined animal feeding operations. I was trying to get the slides from them. I haven't gotten them yet. When I do, I'll email them to Sharon for distribution. There's a whole lot of material on it, but essentially there's a couple of bills in the House that really need attention to get stopped, because what this is going to do is incentivize farmers to create more methane, because they then pipe the methane and burn it to create CO2. The argument is CO2 is a less dangerous gas than methane, so we're burning the methane to create CO2. What is behind this, though, is that methane is produced by decomposing manure when it's decomposed anaerobically. If it's not decomposed anaerobically, if it's decomposed aerobically, it does not produce methane. So it is incentivizing CAFOs, and then on top of it, the way the incentive structure works, the anaerobic digesters can bring in up to 80% off farm waste. So like municipal waste. So the anaerobic digestion does not make it disappear. You know, there's methane produced, heat produced, and then there's a whole bunch of biosolids left, which are bad enough in terms of like the contamination you get with CAFO animals. But then when you bring in 80% off farm waste, think about all the things that includes in that biosolids, which are then spread on fields, and that gets returned into the food system. There's a whole lot more to it, but essentially it's a really, and then these are popping up all over. In Kalamazoo watershed is one of the high areas for them, and people are actually just chasing the incentives. The money is in the money isn't in the methane, the money is in the incentives. And the incentives all sunset in 2028. So this infrastructure is being built out to produce all this methane, and then in 2028, the rug's going to get pulled out, and we're going to be left with all these industrial facilities in the middle of rural areas that no longer can pay the bills because the incentives are what make them profitable. So I'll get that information and share it to Sharon so she can send it around. But there's a lot to this, and it's a really disturbing situation. So, that's it.
Do you know what bill numbers those are? I know there's Senate Bill 275. That's probably the equivalent of something like that.
Is that the one that Senator Sam Singh introduced?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's probably one of them. Then I know that Representative Joey Andrews has introduced a couple that are really troubling, but I don't know the names or the numbers on those.
at least for this Senate bill, it looks like it will probably die in committee this session. I mean, it was introduced in 2023, the beginning of 2023.
These will, I don't know about that one, but these are going to need a lot of attention because this is one of the components of the Michigan Clean or Healthy Energy Plan or whatever it's called. This is one of the ways that we're meeting renewable energy by renewable biogas.
Okay.
So it's, again, this is what I say, it falls in that category of false solutions. It looked good on paper at one point, but a closer inspection shows it's not solving a problem.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? Definitely send that over as soon as you can. And then I don't know if we have anyone that wants to talk about waste or native landscaping as your first meeting potentially on that, but totally fair if not. Just know we'll have you on there for next month. Is there anything you wanted to add? Yeah?
No, I got the appointments from Justin but the first meeting is not until September.
Okay. Oh, okay. Great. And then, Justin, were you looking for a motion? We didn't do that, did we, for all of those positions officially? I don't remember that being a part of accepting a subcommittee, so, okay. So we're good there. Okay. Just making sure, I just noticed that. Okay. Any final committee comments?
I did have one. I've been thinking a lot about ways to improve publicity for the committee. It's been on my mind a lot, especially with just the school year starting up and, what I'm involved in on campus. I actually sent an email to Alexa about that as well, and I CC'd you in it, just kind of almost like looking to rebrand the ECC. I know that we have to take in public comment and kind of go with that, but I think it'd be a really good idea to kind of look at, just kind of brainstorm, and maybe we can put this on the agenda for September, about ways and ideas, opinions that we have on how we can really reach people that definitely have concerns in their communities but don't either know where to take it or know how the process works. I'm definitely going to be talking to the environmental student, RSOs and Office for Sustainabilities on campus about anything they would like to bring to the city, but just kind of an overview of that I think would be good for us to look into. And also, I'm going to be looking to other environmental committees. I've been looking at some in Ann Arbor. They have the same process as us, but just to have a more organized way of, I guess, I'm not really sure what projects we're all really working on, if there's one in progress to submit to the city commission at all, or, I know it's kind of our own agendas brought forth here, but maybe having one subject we could all work on, just a project or two to actually come here and discuss each month.
Yeah, so previously we've had, when we have things on the agenda for business, under business, if there is a recommendation that someone wants to bring forward, they're always welcome to. We can add, that's how we got the EPS recycling pilot program started. That's how we got the climate emergency. So we are very open to suggestions, but it's definitely dependent on what we would like to bring to the table, or citizens have also brought things to the table that we've voted on and created in motion. So everyone's always welcome to do that, and we can definitely add the public awareness to new business of something discussed next month.
Yeah. And also just the subcommittees, I think, are a good way to kind of consolidate what we're working on. So shout out to Justin for that.
I just want to follow up that I think some public awareness might be a good idea. Campuses are good, but I think things like the neighborhood association's annual meetings might be good to set up a table at some of those and just make ourselves available for comment.
I don't know what that officially looks like, but definitely open to that.
I do have one more question,
Yeah.
real quick. As a committee for the city, do we do tabling events at all? Is that something that's happened in the past?
That's why I'm not sure about that, but I know I've seen a lot of different city departments do different tabling. I think it's been suggested, but I don't know of that historically, and if it's what the process for that is.
Yeah, would the money come from the city, or would we have to fund it ourselves?
Some would waive a fee, but a lot of times you're right, tabling events would cost something, so that's we could talk about that next month, for sure. But any other comments from anyone here? Okay, then we'll move on to checking the phone lines, and then last would be if anyone here wanted to do it. Okay, so nobody is on the phone lines, and then anyone in the audience that would like to comment? Okay, hearing none, then we are good to go and adjourn. See you next month.